Hello and welcome to the FUTVE English Podcast in collaboration with World Football Index, a unique mix of fandom and journalism. FUTVE English is your one-stop shop for all things Venezuelan football in the English language, from the men's to the women's and the domestic leagues to the national teams. Welcome back to the FUTVE English Podcast after quite a number of months of hiatus, but we come back with an excellent guest, a very topical guest. Carabobo have just become Apertura champions of Liga FUTVE, their first piece of silverware. And joining us today is their sporting director, Salvatore Simeone. Salvatore, thank you for joining us. How are you?
All good, Jordan. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I've been quite an avid listener of you guys for quite some time, so I feel privileged to be here.
Really appreciate you being here. And as we tweeted rather over the weekend, quite a nice little story to your success is sort of the glow up, to use trendy words for it. I remember in late 2021, I was back in Southampton. If I remember the beginning of the story, I posted the Civic Centre clock tower, an iconic part of the skyline in my home city. You messaged me on Instagram. You'd studied in Southampton yourself, which we'll get into later. And at that time, you were in Spain, obviously with an eye on Liga FUTVE, because you asked where you could watch the league. How did your journey in Liga FUTVE start? Because I guess it was at that moment, but what was going on behind that question of where to watch Liga FUTVE?
Well, at that point when I asked you, actually, I had someone, a friend, I would say, that wanted me to help him establish basically a scouting system in Mineros de Guayana. At that time. So I only basically what I did, I told him, like, I didn't watch the league. I didn't follow it for quite some time. I would say probably even 15, 16 years before I went to an actual game back in my hometown in Maracaibo, from, I think, when Unión Atlético Maracaibo was still playing. Catch up with the league and see how it was and give my perspective. At that point, I didn't have any sort of relationship with Carabobo even.
So going from there, how did the opportunity to join the project at Carabobo arise?
Well, at that point, the now Vice President Pasquale Palmisano was doing a master's in Madrid, in the University of Real Madrid. My wife and him, they were quite close friends when they were little. So they met up because they hadn't seen each other for quite some time. I was just working on a normal day. And she introduced me to him one random day. And all of a sudden, my family's about to purchase a club. And quite funny. I work in the football business and doing this and that. And we just chatted, and what was he had in mind, doing a sustainable project, and I gave him my peace of mind of what I thought what they should have done at that point and all that, and he was quite interested in having me on board. And he said, "Hey, I know you're here, I know you have other stuff on the side, but if you want to come in and join and have an important part of the project, I would really appreciate it, because we come from basketball and baseball, and we want to get into this quite aggressively, and I don't know, I think we clicked personally more than anything." And they said yes. Obviously, at that point, I was in my first year in Spain. I just wanted to see, okay, let's see. I was very close-minded to it at first, to be honest. My wife was like, "Hey, you don't have anything to lose. Let's see how it goes." And yeah, we just started working on distance, and my main thing was, okay, let's build a squad, because I think the league was still running at that point. They had 3 matches left, and they could even qualify at that point for La Sudamericana, I think. But I started building the squad. It's like started calling players that didn't know me. I didn't even have an official role at that point, but I just wanted to have a very competitive squad that was able to compete in the league. So yeah, that initially was the main thing. I just want to have a competitive squad. After that, it was, okay, let's now sort out the club in terms of building up different the structure within the club, how to work, and the roles and responsibilities we all need to have, and all that.
And I picked up on you saying that the ownership wanted to go for the project quite aggressively. You're 2.5 years into the process. It's fair to say you've achieved that the outcome of an aggressive approach. But before we get into that, I'd be interested to know a bit about your background prior to Venezuela. For personal reasons, you were in my city, Southampton, a city I'm very passionate about. How did you end up studying in Southampton? Because I know you did a degree in football studies. The university is very well known for that degree. It's got a strong relationship with the professional club in the city, Southampton Football Club, as well as clubs across the country. So how did you end up in Southampton doing that course, and what was your experience like studying football studies and of Southampton?
Well, at that point, I was in Italy. I lived in Italy for a year. I was coaching, working with Juventus Youth Academy, and they wanted to set up the first youth academy in South America. At that point, they decided to do Venezuela basically mostly because I think at that point, if I remember correctly, it was a long time ago. Fabio Grosso, the Italian player, he was the Primavera coach. His wife was from Venezuela. And for some reason, he got excited about, okay, actually, I would like to open an academy in Venezuela. So myself and a guy that I work with that was from Venezuela too, but had been living in Italy for a while. I'm a Juve fan. So for me, it was a dream come true. And they told me, hey, do you want to go and open up the first academy as a head coach, coordinator, basically? I said, yes, let's do that. So I went back to Venezuela after 4 or 5 years, opened the academy. I had been living there for already a couple of years. And at that point, I was quite in a point of my life where it was, okay, I need a new challenge. I need to, I wasn't keen again to going back to Venezuela. And I saw things a little bit, muddy at the time in terms of my career, my pathway. And I wanted to keep improving in terms of my skills, my capabilities, and at that, I would say I wanted to do something in academically where I could say, okay, I'm actually getting ready to be better and work in football. At that point, all my coaching licenses were a thing that provided me with different opportunities, but I also wanted to do something else. When I started my career, I would say there weren't too many avenues that you could take if you wanted to get into football, like official. At that point, it was either you were a coach or maybe, I don't know, maybe you did business and then some way or some sort of way you became an agent or something like that for someone who didn't play football professionally. So I started looking at different courses that felt like the right fit, and it was always been my dream to live in England. Like I always watched the Premier League, I always watch the Premiership as well. So for me, I always had it in my mind that I was going to live in England and I was going to live there for 5 years. I don't know, since I was little, I always thought that for some reason, not even bound to study anything related to football. I just wanted to live and experience that for quite a long time. So I found Solent and it felt like the perfect fit right away for me. I joined in, I signed up, I did everything that I had to do. It was quite a long process, like 3-4 months. To being accepted and find the right place to live and all that, because I basically moved in. Since I've always done it the same way. When I moved to a different country, I moved in and I started my classes in a week basically. So yeah, I think and I spent there, as I told you, 5 exact years within COVID as well. I loved it. It was I think more so than the actual city. I think it was as I told you off camera or off the record, like it was a tough time personally in terms of development, finding myself, my role in this whole thing in terms of who I wanted to be, who I was, what I wanted to become as a young man, as a professional as well. But I was very happy that I was able to do or to have a lot of relationships, long-lasting relationships that now I can call friends, that most of them work in football as well, at a very high level. So for me, I think it was amazing, and I had the chance to also, travel all over, see football matches. That for me was the main thing that kept me going, like just to be I mean, being in a city where Southampton was playing the Premier League, and I was just walk 10 to 15 minutes just to the stadium with everyone. It was quite an experience for me.
So when you got your first step in professional football with Carabobo, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, you had your analyst role with Leeds, sorry, but being club side full time, back in your country of birth, what were the things that you identified to change? Like, what were the first things that you wanted to do differently when you arrived at Carabobo?
I think the main thing for me was to speak the same language. In terms of it goes easy by saying it, but it was okay. Let's understand the business model. What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? What would it entail to establish KPIs, realistic KPIs of both on the pitch and off the pitch. For me, was setting up the structure because we were and we aren't that many people. We are definitely way more than the first year. But on the first year, we were just a handful even of people just making decisions, like day-to-day decisions. And for me was, okay, let's establish who's doing what are the key responsibilities, and what are our how are we competent on actually performing the role that we're having. Establish a competitive squad. I mean, that first year I was very excited about it because honestly, the first year I was mainly responsible for building the whole squad, including hiring the coaching staff. So for me, because I had a blank slate, so I could do anything. So for me, it was very exciting just to actually build a squad from nothing. After that, establish a youth coaching methodology that could be applied. That was very difficult because at the end, I've been someone who's working not only England and Spain, but also Italy. So for me, it was okay, how can I actually build and have the best of everything that I've learned, ended up and in a way that it wasn't, since I hadn't been there and I didn't know the mentality and the idiosyncrasy of the coaches in Venezuela. I didn't want to say, hey, this is way better and you should do this. I just say, okay, this is my way of seeing things, and this is the way that is being worked in Europe. And I think if we apply this and we keep the best of what we already have, I think we can produce the type of player that we want to have in the future. So those were the main couple of things I would say that for me were the priority in the first couple of months.
Okay, so that was like the early days. What did you
Yeah.
bring forward, like your experience as a coach with the Juventus Youth Academy, your professional studies at university, Solent University, and also from your time as an opposition and recruitment analyst for Leeds? What has served you best from those three experiences in your first 2.5 years at Carabobo?
In terms of coaching wise, it was obviously establishing a coaching methodology that was up to date. I think it goes. I mean, it's very important to say that I think that's the main and key thing that sets Europe from the rest of South America apart. I think because Europe is always evolving football wise in terms of how to coach, how to improve, how to change the setup. What are the key points that you need to coach? What's the vocabulary you need to use? What are the dimensions of the pitch? How many players you should have? Even the way that you behave as a coach, coaching. Again, yeah, methodologies of how to get into a coaching session, when to step back, how many key points you should tell a player. And I think those things set them apart in the long term. And you can see that, I think, in international competitions like now, maybe, and I don't want to get too far from your question, but when you see Brazil and Argentina and you see the way that have plenty and they have a lot of talent, grows the growth of Europe in general, all across the board. You could see as a whole, they're setting themselves apart. When you see countries like Turkey, Denmark, the Netherlands, again, and you see ourselves with Venezuela just getting so far behind in terms of the type of players that we produce in terms of mass, not quality, because we definitely have the quality, but in Europe you see quality and also quantity, and I think that starts when players are young. So for me, it was obviously setting that structure up and building a portfolio of the things that we needed to do and how to implement it, building a team, and in terms of coaches and staff that could actually perform that. I would say now is a better representation of that work. But that initially really helped me a lot in terms of the football studies as a degree, and how it helped me. I think it's very hard to say specifically how it helped me myself. I think it's again, and maybe a lot of people have had this experience. I think university gives you the building blocks of your profession in a way, but then when you're put out in the world and you need to actually do things, I think it's just an amalgamation of everything, your life experience, everything you've gone through. So I think every little thing has helped me. Probably football study wise, it was obviously all my network, because again, I was someone who already knew and had established a way of working. And I knew everything, like the good practices that clubs at top level were doing. Also, I was working with leads, so I have all my softwares and everything that I needed to do, how to establish a scouting department in terms of, okay, now I'm only myself at that point. So, okay, what I needed to do, what was the main thing that I needed to set up, what sort of player was able to be successful, not only in the league, but then if we wanted to sell them afterwards, what was that player profile? And then again, maybe not so much in those first couple of months, but afterwards, I think all the relationships that I've made has helped me to put the brand in a better position, because they have, okay, you worked there, so they should mean business. And I'm not saying that in a egotistical way, but again, I was privileged enough to be in that environment, like England and Solent and all that. Those guys are now working in high-level professional football. When they saw that I went back to Venezuela working with the project, they got both excited, and maybe even some of them asked some questions and just, oh, why are you going back and all that. And for me was, I'm going to a place that I could create something. And I think a lot of people within football are not that privileged. You need to usually get into it. What happened to me, at least, I was within a system that maybe my ceiling was quite low. And I think I took the chance of, actually, I want to create something out of nothing, and that was very excited for me. So maybe I'm going all around, but basically I wouldn't know how to pinpoint a single thing that helped me to translate from university to now, because I think it was everything involved. My life experiences, everything that I went through. Even I had coaching courses, I had management courses, I had psychology courses, and I think definitely have applied all of that into my work and into my daily life in general.
And perhaps with specific examples, when you first arrived at Carabobo and you were taking over this project, were there any like easy wins that you saw, like things that you could change immediately, things that you could do differently from day one that you think would have bought, and perhaps they did, perhaps they didn't bring you those easy wins? Because I think, although very different to your path, when I arrived to Venezuela from England, and sort of lacking a professional background in football, but being around football for many years and European football, I immediately saw things, or rather I was shocked to not see things happening here. And I thought, okay, they're things that can be introduced fairly easily and could reap big rewards.
I would say the main thing was on just doing the work in general. It's just, for me, was just having a proper scouting being done and build up a squad out of just basic reasoning, a logic, and a purpose. I'm someone that I'm very hectic and I'm very anxious, and I like to, when I start going, like, I don't stop. That's both a good thing and a detriment in some points, but for me at that particular period, it was, I'm getting all of this done in a very short amount of time, and everyone is not even thinking about it. And I could tell because I was setting up the squad, I was talking to players, and they didn't even, oh yeah, we just finished the season, we don't know what we're doing. Some of them weren't even training. Some of them were even still like in the last couple of games prior to finishing the competition. For me, I think in retrospective, I would say doing stuff on time, having a logic of your work, so having a purpose. So okay, we want to do this. This is the type of squad we want to build. This is the short, mid, and long-term goals that we have as a club. And having people doing their part and their role, I think for me, that was, and it seems like not much, but to be fair, I think it's improved, definitely 100% it's improved since I got involved in the league, because I think teams, I don't want to say, because I don't know how people take it, but I don't know if we set up a trend or anything, but I think when I got here, I could tell you we were probably one of the few clubs that work or try to work in an organized way. And I think when people saw that, definitely caught up, like having a sporting director structure. I think sporting directors are starting to become a new thing that weren't in the league before. I don't want to say we were the pioneers of that, but definitely when I got here, not many clubs were doing it. Having a scouting network, having a scouting department, not many clubs had that. When we started working with the project, now they starting to pay more attention to data, to actually in their recruitment to look for foreigners that maybe could improve the league, and they're not just strokes of luck. So again, that first year was definitely just a work ethic.
And one challenge you've had with what everyone in Venezuelan football has had, with squad building and then ultimately with a view to winning a title or qualifying for Europe, is the constant changing format. In the 3 seasons that you've had here in Venezuelan football, 22, 23, and now 24, it's been a different format every year, different number of teams every year. What's been the biggest challenge of this changing format? Because a lot of people this season in FUTVE and around FUTVE were quite critical of this year's format in particular. And I think people were looking for justifications in their criticism early in the season, and looked towards what seemed to be like quite low intensity games. No particular urge for teams to be right up the top of the table, as long as they squeezed in that top 8, they'll have a title challenge. What was the perception from the inside about the format this year?
To be fair, we don't pay that much attention in terms of how could it either benefit us or damper our expectations. For us, it's just adaptation. To be fair, I don't like the current format. I don't like it at all. And I said my piece before the season started, because it's going to affect everyone, both in a good way and a bad way. For me, it's just about just staying, and I think everyone is on the same page of just let's keep one for a while. Let's keep it, and actually let's have maybe a 5-year period where we could say properly, statistically, this is the benefits, and these are the maybe the things that we need to change, and this is how it's affecting us as a club. But I agree with you 100% that I think every year is the same, because with the last format, it was quite similar, that just early on, the clubs that weren't doing well was like, no, this is not the right format. We want to go back to having an Apertura and a Clausura. But I think as a club, you need to adapt. I think you could see maybe a couple of clubs that have done well in both formats. And I think it's just when you don't resist it, just, okay, this is the way it goes. Let's just adapt. In terms of squad building, this one is a bit tougher. Especially because if you did well in the first half, it's very easy to get carried away for the second half in terms of, okay, how we need to improve, what are some of the changes you need to do. And that's the main thing that I don't like about the format, because usually happens If you are a team that did well in Apertura, you like us, for example, not use. I didn't want to use us as an example, but in this case, okay, we won the tournament. It's very easy to get carried away and say, okay, I'm not gonna maybe do the effort or the same effort, and I'm not gonna do with the same strength that I did on the first half. They don't have a good second half. That's what usually happens in other leagues and in other contexts within this setup. But I think at the end of the day, you just need to adapt. You just need to adapt and accept it. But again, I don't think it's necessarily the fact that maybe matches are not being that high tempo and all that. I don't think that's down to the format at all. I think that's a combination of, firstly, I think referees play a huge part on that. I think the fact that we need to improve on that, and I think they're really trying. And I think we have, in terms of talent, we have very good referees. I think it's just an interpretation of the game. And again, not because I lived 5 years in England, just I really like when just referees let play go. Like, I love that. I love that about the Prem. I love the way that British football appreciate the game, that it's very difficult to give out an easy foul, and that just builds up. And when you have that and you don't communicate too much with the bench, the players, and just if we start within clubs and within players and within the youth system that you are not gonna praise making time or wasting time, just faking fouls, and all those little things, I think at the end of the day, we're gonna build up and show a better product. But I wouldn't say that's down to the format. I wouldn't agree with that at all. I think even this format it had us competing up until the last minute, until the last second, because it was so close. So if I'm someone that is just watching from the sidelines, I would say that this format was quite exciting in terms of you didn't know what was going to happen. As a club, it was very hard because at the end of the day, you had clubs like Táchira and Caracas. Maybe Táchira had an unfair result in the end in terms of you didn't make it for just a scratch, and yeah, but that's the competition. Again, you need to adapt. Like last year, we didn't make it for 1 point because of 1 point. The last match again against Caracas, it was at the end of the day. I think if we want to make the league better, we just need everyone just to accept it and make the most of it. And if we had this one, let's just keep it up until at least 5 years. And if you want to make a comparison, just compare us to Colombia. Colombia, not for me, just I think it's just already ranked as the third best league in South America. And if it's the case, it's for a reason. And there you have very high tempo matches, quite attractive football, very competitive league, and it's the same format. So no, not exactly 100% the same, but basically in general, is the same format.
Thank you, Salvatore. And at this point in the podcast, I just want to say sorry for some of the audio quality on my part. I don't understand what's going on with my microphone today. But to explain to listeners who perhaps aren't familiar with the new format in Liga FUTVE or haven't paid too much attention to exactly what panned out, the season this year is split into an Apertura and a Clausura stage, an opening stage and a closing stage, as is common with multiple leagues in the Americas. We've just finished the Apertura. Carabobo, as we've been discussing today, were crowned champions. The format was everyone played everyone just the once, so 13 games. And if you were at home against, say, Caracas in the Apertura, you'll be away against Caracas in the Clausura. After 13 games, the top 8 teams broke away into a 2-group format, 4 teams apiece. They played home and away. And after that, the leaders of Group A and Group B, which ultimately were Metropolitanos and Carabobo, played each other in a one-legged final, Carabobo beating Metropolitanos 3-0. That means Carabobo have already qualified for the grand finale, which will take place at the end of the season between the Apertura winners and the Clausura winners, unless, of course, Carabobo win the Clausura as well, in which case they will be the absolute champions. Salvatore, it must bring you great professional and personal pride to see that in the 3 teams of the Apertura so far officially released, one by Scout, one by SofaScore, and one by Goal TV, the official broadcasters of the league. There are 8 of Carabobo's most used 11 players that are named at least once in one of the teams of the Apertura. It's only Robert Hernandez, who has won titles elsewhere in Venezuelan football, Harrison Contreras, Carabobo's captain, and Jose Balsa, a key man of your attack, that weren't named in at least one of the teams of the tournament. All 8 of the other mainstays of Carabobo's 11 were named in at least one.
Well, thank you for the congratulations on the title, Jordan. I think even more so because those players, most of them have been here where Harrison has been in the club for 4 years, and the rest for 3 and 2 years. So for me, as I've told them personally, for me, it's just the pride comes when I can say that we want something as a family, because that's the feeling that we have from the inside. At the end of the day, either you want it or not, even if you're not probably the most social person, I think it's inevitable to build relationship and care for those that live within the club, and especially the players. I think those players really love the club, love what we stand for as an organization, which is a word that the owners use a lot, which I think it sets a perspective of the way that we behave internally. So yeah, that's the main satisfaction, and especially in a personal note, because this year I told him when the last season ended, I had a meeting, individual meetings with all the players, the ones that were going to continue and the ones that didn't end up. And my main thing, and I think the main thing that I told them was, this 2024 is gonna be with the ones that I have close to my heart, and that I think are gonna go for it in terms of what the club stands for and what we stand for. That these players are gonna be the ones that represent myself in a personal note and ourselves as a club in the best way possible. And you could see that, and I wasn't testing at the end. I just wanted to tell them, I'm gonna trust you guys, the ones that really hurt for the club and bleed for the club and and that have made sacrifices, and that you've put the club before your own, before yourself in many occasions, and that I think that showed up at the end. That definitely showed up. I think last year was a sexy club to see at. Like, you could see the signings, you could see the excitement, you could see the marquee players that we had. But I think it was, we probably in retrospective we made a mistake because you could see the squad in 2022, you could see a trend. But last year I think we got carried away with expectations, and we went maybe a different way of, okay, let's just get the players are already established in the league, or players that have a lot of name and a lot of cachet in terms of the value that they could bring. But I think that it's very difficult to build club culture when you have so many players come in and they don't earn their part within the story that we were writing. And this year was just going back to those core players that were here even before I was, and in the first year, into the official first year, 2022, and just trust them. And I think that paid off at the end. So that for me was the main satisfaction, that a lot of them, and it wasn't a sure thing. It wasn't a sure thing. It could have gone either, a different way. Even with the head coach, that could have gone haywire in a way too. But I was so confident. It's very easy to say it now. It was very easy to say it now, but I was very confident because I knew the sort of people that I had behind. It wasn't so much in terms of the quality of the players that I had at my disposal, but mostly the people that I had working alongside me.
And I think it's fair to say an interesting part of the project so far, for anyone that follows Liga FUTVE or as Carabobo fans, has been the foreign recruitment. Carabobo have been fairly active in that market, and not just the typical Latin American markets that Liga FUTVE tends to hang its hat on. you've had success in bringing a player from Europe. You've bought players from Europe, but not necessarily European players. We've had African players at Carabobo, and of course, the players from the typical markets across South America. Some have been huge successes, others not so much. And you've replicated it on the coaching front. What's been the challenges of bringing foreign players in that aren't from the usual markets that Liga FUTVE relies on? Because it's something I'm personally particularly very interested in. I think there's lots to be gained by Liga FUTVE doing it. And I think Carabobo and the project there have proven that it can be done and it can be successful.
I think the most difficult thing has definitely been managing expectations, both within the club and also from the outside, in terms of fans and in terms of the league and in terms of the people that just are living within the system of FUTVE. That would be the main thing for me. It's been a learning curve, 100%. Obviously, because I think people think that. I think that my way of seeing it is, if you're a foreign player, that doesn't need to necessarily make you, or in our perspective and my perspective, doesn't necessarily mean that you are better than a Venezuelan player. Just for me, it's in terms of, are you the right fit for the role? And also, are you the right character? And I think what I really appreciate about foreign players is, what can they provide within our structure that we already don't have? Because I think when you have people from all over, like, firstly, football in general is made up from that. I think when you have a multicultural environment, that just makes you better. So I think it's just, for me, it's all benefits, and obviously you need to perform 100%. But also, I think we need to understand that the period of adaptation it just varies. That's usually what happens. I mean, if we want to have Venezuelan players succeeding in other latitudes, and you want other countries and leagues to accept them and protect them and make everything in their power to make them successful, why shouldn't we do the same with other people? But I think there's a lot of resentment that we have built up here when we bring people from abroad, that we're either waiting for them to fail, or we just ask too many questions. I think people they got used to clubs just bringing people from anywhere and just improvising. And but that's, I think, what you could I could tell you without like putting everything on the table, all the players that I brought that are not from Venezuela, they are all really, really, really good players. They either work or not, but it is not down to lack of talent. There are so many things that need to go the right way for them to succeed. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the coach. It depends on their family structure. It depends on their personality. It depends on how are they perceived by their environment, meaning the players I already have within the squad, and then a little bit of luck, if you want to say so, as well. I could tell you, if you put Viveros from the first season in this environment that we have now, we probably wouldn't have scored 21 goals. Like, it's not that logic that I think works. I think at the end of the day, my job as a sporting director and anyone that works in recruitment is, we need to reduce considerably the risk factor. But that doesn't necessarily proves or shows that it's going to be successful. You just need to have a structure that is going to make everything in their power to make that player succeed. And for me, it was my main thing that I said on the first year of 2022 was, let's just use the world. The world it just gave us almost unlimited possibilities. If we see the right player, we're not going to look at their passport, and we're going to go for it. The second year and this year, again, it's a learning curve, and I don't want to just go against the grain in terms of just bringing a player from somewhere exotic because I just want to prove myself right now. Is it the perfect fit? Like, for example, the second year, everyone saw, I think the main one that caught everyone's eye was Jeremy, because he came, I would say even more so because he was French. It was because of the league that he came from. He came from a quite level environment in terms of football to here. And he just gave us a higher quality on a daily basis in terms of how professional the players were, how he behaved, how he prepared for matches, how focused he was. The fact that he came and he already had learned some Spanish in order to communicate on the pitch. The fact that he knew the players' names, the fact that he knew the rivals, that set up a standard definitely on the second year. So that's the sort of behavior that I wanted us to see and compare ourselves with. And that's the same thing that I had with Diego as a head coach. Like, it's not about saying things from outside are better necessarily. It's we have so much to learn. And that's just, if we build at the right mindset, which is what I've been wanting to create within the club structure of being open-minded, being humble, just trying to get the best out of everyone and everything, and just have that hunger to improve every year. And I think when you have those players coming in from all over that have different experiences to the players that we already have from Venezuela, I think that just makes them better.
And when you spoke of Jeremy coming in France, the French goalkeeper Carabobo had for the first half of the year last year, sort of raising the standards by example, his level of professionalism, for example. On the flip side, there's people in Venezuelan football that say we're not ready for European players. Do you buy into that philosophy, or do you buy into that stereotype, that prejudice? Obviously, you've probably proven that you can, that Venezuelan football is ready. Perhaps there's individual clubs that will feel less ready. And I remember a couple of years ago now, a sporting director telling me the difficulty of bringing in a player from Europe would be it would bring attention that perhaps is unwanted, and with it pressure, but also that their expectations are higher. So what they're expecting from the training ground, the stadiums are higher. Whereas bringing in players from Africa, for example, they've said that it's been more manageable. So do you buy into this idea that FUTVE isn't ready for players from higher levels, or is it an excuse? How do you feel about it?
By what you just said, I would assume that you were talking about Mickey saying that. But
it actually wasn't Mickey. Obviously, Caracas haven't got it done, but it actually wasn't Mickey. It was somebody else. But speaking to other people at Caracas, like they have said in general that Venezuela is not ready for bigger projects. But when it came to recruitment, it wasn't so much that.
I think you just need to be honest. But with Jeremy, I convinced him with a couple. We had a couple of Zoom calls, and I was very straightforward. Hey, we want you here. We're obviously going to provide you with La Libertadores platform, which is something that I knew was going to be very appealing to him. We're going to make a lot of fuss around you. We didn't see it as a problem. We actually saw it as a good thing for the brand, both within Venezuela and also from outside. And thirdly, I mean, all the things that I told you about club culture and the benefits that could come with having a player from that environment to this. But I was very straightforward. I was very honest. I showed him pictures and I said, hey, these are the difficulties you're going to face. The daily training environment is quite difficult to go from where you are now to here. But I think the people just make it better. Not better, but manageable. I think when you have a lot of people that even not having the best tools at their disposal, but they are very professional and have very high standards, I think that compensates, because I've been in club structures and I've seen it, and I've talked to people that work in different club structures that sometimes they have all the tools, they have great football pitches, they have a good office setup, but they don't have high professionals working within that structure. And at the end of the day, I think you need both things. But if I could keep one, I would definitely keep the quality and the high profile of people that I get to work with.
Okay. Well, last question on squad building. We've spoken about it quite a while. What's the challenge now of building a squad, or adding to a squad rather? You've got a squad built. You don't need a rebuild. But how do you add to a squad to compete in a meaningful way next season in continental football? I think it's quite topical at the moment because Sarago has spoken about it at Deportivo Táchira. He's been quite brutal in describing the challenges. We saw Caracas have a miserable tournament, let's be honest. And it didn't go too much better in Sudamericana for Real Zuliano and Metropolitanos either. My personal opinion, at least with the Sudamericana, is the wrong teams qualified for group stages in order to give Venezuela a better face, as it were. So what are the challenges in recruitment specific to preparing for continental football?
No, I don't subscribe to that whole mindset of we're not ready to compete. Or with that, definitely I agree that we're very far behind, 100%. I do think that are different factors even beyond football that put us in that position. But the fact that we can put a player like, let's say, John Aramburu or Delasco Segovia and put it from this environment, or even Martinez and put it from this environment and put him in a different one that is way more competitive and they're able to succeed. Like, we have the quality. Well, in terms of quality of players, we do have it. Logistically, we definitely need to have a lot of shortcomings and things that need to improve. We don't have the financial prowess and capabilities that other clubs like in Argentina or Brazil have. But you cannot tell me that we cannot compete against Bolivian teams or teams from Peru, or not to say anything bad about them, but I think football-wise, we definitely have what it takes to be or to have a competitive tournament. I think at the end is managing what you want to go for. And what I've seen from this side is I've seen teams that have given priority. I need to get my 3 million at the end of the year. So I need to prioritize the league and qualify, and I'm not gonna put my whole and everything that I have in the international competition, because that may take away from this other thing that I have, which is very important if you want to either be sustainable or not even sustainable. If you actually want to have a club in Venezuela running on a yearly basis, so I think that's definitely being the biggest difficulty. And that's my take. I think that's definitely a lot of thread that you could develop from that topic alone, but not going too far into it. I would say for us, in terms of squad building, is just giving continuity to what we already have, and just adding very specific pieces to the puzzle of that maybe can give us value and being more competitive in that environment. I would say one of the biggest mistakes that a club can have or can do at this point is just redo the whole thing and just, let's say, I'm going to splash a lot of cash into the project, and I'm going to build a very quote unquote even more competitive squad in terms of names and in terms of depth. I think if you want to see the playing model being developed to the highest level, you need to give continuity, and also you need to give value and props to the team and the squad that make it happen for you to actually be in an international competition. So for me, again, that's the key. Just adding very specific points that could add value and that could enter to our club culture and to our playing style, and just keep the core.
To end on a personal note for you, we've spoken a lot about Carabobo, we've spoken a lot about the project, but not too much about yourself. But obviously, this is a big success for you. In a short answer to wrap up the podcast, what's next for Salvatore Simeone in Liga FUTVE, And do you have long-term career ambitions outside of Venezuela?
I would say, to be very honest with you, I have short terms goals outside Venezuela that I've had since I got here. But at the end of the day, I just want to be. I'm someone that likes to be present and that likes to enjoy the moment. I always have my head put up on what's next organically. But now I'm enjoying the time that I'm having here. I'm enjoying more so than the sporting success. I'm very excited about leaving behind a successful structure, not in terms of achievements, but more so in a way of work that other people can carry away and make the club even more successful after I leave. But yeah, I mean, I want to work at the highest level. That's always been my goal since I started. But I also want to be in the right environment in a place that I can grow. I'm not content. That's why I came here. I'm not content of just being another an extra layer in someone else's big plans. I want to make a change in any environment that I'm in. So now I'm keeping an open mind in terms of possibilities. Within La Liga FUTVE, I think it would be very difficult for me to work in a different environment because I'm so attached to the club and what it stands for. But at the end of the day, yeah, I know this is a job. This is a job, and I think if the right fit comes, I'm definitely gonna know about it. But hopefully, people that know football and that have been following the what we've done, put value what is rightfully due, and yeah, I'm very confident that for me personally, this when I look back, this probably is going to be one of the best choices career-wise that I've taken, and it's definitely given me so much, and that I have improved so much as a professional and as a human being, because there's so much that if you get done within this environment, I think in a different place where you have everything at your disposal and things maybe come easier your way, you're definitely going to be able. Because when I speak to people again that close to me, that they say, "Yeah, I don't have those problems here," and that for me is not a detriment to where I am now. That's actually a benefit, because hey, if I'm actually dealing with the whole things that I have going all around me on a day-to-day basis, when I'm able to be in a different club environment where I can focus probably mostly in football rather than this whole noise that I have around me, I think I could even do a better job. But for the time being, I'm very happy and excited about what's to come for Carabobo and what we're doing now. And hopefully, which is a goal that we have, I want to leave with the highest note possible, which is just putting a star in the club's crest. That would be, for me, that would mean the world, and that I think that would come full circle for me in a professional note.
Well, thank you very much for speaking so openly and honestly. It's been an education. It's been insightful. Congratulations again on winning the Apertura, and all the best for the Clausura. And thank you for, regrettably and ashamedly almost, being our first guest for 2024. We were, in our first 2 years, prided ourselves on being a fortnightly podcast. Dominic and I have both had other projects away from FUTVE English that has taken up a lot of our time. Dominic now a full-time sports journalist in the US. So thank you for helping us restart the podcast this year.
No, I appreciate your time, and most of all, Jordan, I mean, I think you were one of the main guys that appreciated since the beginning what we were doing. I think you identified what Carabobo very early on were doing in terms of scouting, and you saw a sense and a logic behind all the. I remember when we just signed, for example, Pernia, Gustavo. You saw a trend and you value it, and you were quite excited about the project very early on when people were having doubts. When we announced Kike as a head coach too. So I really appreciate that, because it's very easy to be now on this side and say, yeah, oh yeah, you're doing a great job, and acknowledging what Carabobo is doing now as a club. But I really appreciate you for putting the time, for having that eye, and obviously for giving me the platform to talk about what we're doing here, what Carabobo is doing, what we've achieved, and on a personal note, just to shedding light on the work that I've been able to do on these 2.5 years. I really appreciate it. So
Honestly, thank you very much. And hopefully the public enjoy this podcast as much as I've enjoyed recording it. So thank you again.